Metropolitan Police Commissioner Mark Rowley has appeared before the Home Affairs Select Committee. He was there to answer questions about police priorities in London. That's when Tory Party Deputy Chair Lee Anderson let him know what his priorities are.
Just this morning, we've seen protesters on Whitehall around Parliament Square, probably as you was coming into the building. Don't you think it's time that you left the Ivory Tower and got out there on Whitehall and sorted these people out? Because, people of London, the tourists, the people that work at this place, and, the taxi drivers, the bus drivers, they're getting fed up of it, and you're just letting it happen. You've got the powers now to do this.
So there's current bill bouncing around Parliament which hasn't come in yet, so those powers aren't in existence yet.
It's not strictly true, is it? You can move these people on. They're obstructing the highway.
So we could have a long conversation about public order law.
Why are you not moving them on?
Well, because you're making selective comments based on a partial understanding of the law. I do not want Londoners disrupted any more than anybody else does, but the law is very clear that protest is disruptive, and to a reason and to a certain extent that is allowed. That is what the law says at the moment. Now, you might not like that, but I have to work to the law rather than rather than whim. Now, it is right.
It's not, Commissioner, but
it's you might want to believe that the law says that no disruption is allowed whatsoever through protest, but that is not the case.
I think you might want to believe, Commissioner, that that you're doing your job correctly. I don't think you are. But I'm just going to ask one more question. I'll make one more statement because I feel like I'm wasting my time with you, to be honest. You say you took 5 years out of the force. There's probably people listening to this today wish it was a lot longer, and I'm one of them. Do you think you've got the confidence of the public?
I'm not going to sit here. If people want to be personally offensive, then write it in newspapers, but I'm not going to answer those questions.
Wow, what an asshole. It's a shame, really, to watch a clip where the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police looks eminently reasonable, because we know how many problems that service currently has. Dahlia, what did you make of that? My worry is that he's saying the law isn't that we can just stop anyone causing any kind of disruption. And so Lee Anderson is going to go away and say, let's change the law then.
Yeah, and that's what the Conservatives are trying to do. And look, it's very important to remember here that authoritarian regimes never explicitly come out and say, we want to silence dissent, or we want to stop people from criticizing us or expressing their dissent through protest. They never say that. They never say we're trying to establish, an authoritarian regime. They always do it through this language of public order, of loving the nation, of patriotism. That's always the means through which authoritarian governments achieve authoritarian ends. And the way that they do this is by criminalizing both, explicit forms of protest, for example, as we can see in the Public Order Bill and the Minimum Services legislation, this idea of criminalizing particular expressions of dissent, whether it's going on strike or whether it's, disruptive protest, which is obviously part of our democracy. But it's also by criminalizing really mundane behavior. That's also how kind of authoritarian regimes become authoritarian. It's by, criminalizing things like laughing gas and, acting like this is, a scourge on our streets. It's by creating moral panics around, about antisocial behavior and criminalizing things like loitering. This is how authoritarian regimes sharpen their tools. It's always through this language of public order. And what we're seeing with Lee Anderson is just pound shop authoritarianism. It's really boring, obvious, traditional authoritarianism. And the image of seeing, a politician talking to the police and saying to the police, you need to go further in arresting protesters. That's an incredibly worrying juncture that we're at right now.